Hi, everybody. Well, I'm the closer today. The good news is I'm the closer. The bad news is I'm not Brian Wilson. I'm sorry. But I'm here to talk to you about a very important topic, and that is caregivers in Parkinson's disease. How many of you here are caregivers? Okay. Well, welcome. You're in the right place. Parkinson's caregivers come in all shapes and sizes. Your husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, friends, relatives, your adult children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, your friends. Any of you who are caregivers come in all those different relationships, and you are so important. But I want you to know that I searched high and low to find the right description for what a caregiver is. And I think you'll agree with the one that I found. Let me tell you this. Caregiver job description. It's a challenging job that takes place in an unstructured environment without coworkers. No formal job description or training. And supervision is by a boss that is by definition out sick. I don't know. I'm not sure how many of us would ever take this job voluntarily. But I'm here to tell you how valuable you are. You're valuable to many people. In fact, it's been estimated the economic value of services that family caregivers provide for free is approximately $375 billion per year in the United States. $375 billion. That's almost double what is spent on home care and nursing home services combined. That's a pretty big economic figure. But that's just part of the picture. Your help to the doctor, to the nurse, to the clinicians is priceless. I am so glad when you come to those doctor visits, when you meet with me, when we go over things together, you and the person with Parkinson's, because I know I have a patient advocate, I know I have an ally, and I have that objective third party that can help. I know all the things that you do, and you are valuable. Your service to the loved one is beyond measure in terms of love, depth, and concern. As a caregiver, your care is the person with Parkinson's most valuable asset. So what do you do as a caregiver? Well, you help with activities of daily living. This is everything. You help things get going. You start in the morning, you get things going. You do breakfast, you get things going. You help with medication management. And we all know how complicated Parkinson's medication is. Pills throughout the day, several times a day, and how important it is to take them on time. I know that you help with household chores. Let's do the laundry, let's take care of this, grocery shopping, you name it, caregivers do it. You help with financial support, financial management. You deal with the bills, you deal with this and that, the health insurance, is this paid, is everything covered? You help with transportation, you get the person to and from their appointments, their doctor's appointment, their dental appointments, whatever it is. You're there for emotional support. You're there to make sure the medical plan management is right. In addition, you also cope with all the Parkinson's symptoms. Now, granted, you're not the person with Parkinson's, but you're the closest person to them, and you go through the same kind of things, the same feelings, and a lot of it you can't do anything about. You know that there's the motor symptoms. We've talked about those today. You know, the stiffness, the rigidity, the tremor, freezing, and also the non-motor symptoms. So many of those, and we're finding more and more of that all the time. The depression, the anxiety, sleep disturbance, and behavior and thinking changes that can come with Parkinson's. This caregiver job is a demanding 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job, and the duties increase as the disease progresses. I would say this leads to just a fair amount of stress, wouldn't you? So caregivers are often ill-prepared to manage the emotional and physical cares of caregiving, demands of caregiving. I mean, who in the heck asked for this job? You know, who in the heck asked for Parkinson's? When that diagnosis came, my gosh, it was a shock to everybody. And here it is, and suddenly you're a caregiver. Well, you face the increasing demands as the disease progresses, but typically Parkinson's affects people in their older years. Well, often the spouse is the caregiver, and spouse is also elderly and dealing with those aging and their own health problems at the same time. It's not like you're spared. So caregiving places constraints on social and family life, employment, and finances. And I think about the social aspects. I was a caregiver to my mother who had Alzheimer's. And at one point she was in a nursing home, and I would go see her, try to see her around meal times. But I realized I couldn't do that anymore. It was just too hard. I was so much trying to force her to eat when she didn't want to eat, or worrying about her doing this or that, or getting food all over herself. And she was a woman who was very prim and proper, and I finally decided I couldn't go be with her while she eats. It was just something that I had to give up. And that was a social connection we had together that we could no longer do. Then there's rest of the family. This Parkinson's affects the entire family. And there is a concern about employment. If you're a caregiver and you're still working, you're juggling a lot of things. You're trying to manage this, you're trying to manage that. What do? Do you cut back on your job? That's going to affect you financially. Do you quit your job? That's going to affect you financially. But the other thing about your employment status is we get a lot of self-esteem from our jobs. Are we supposed to give that up too as a caregiver? So these are the stresses of caregiving, but there is help. And I'm here to talk to you today about the help. I want you to get prepared. If you haven't already, get prepared and be prepared. I want you as a caregiver to take care of yourself. I want you to get help. Don't try to do all the caregiving by yourself. It's too much. And I want you to keep a good relationship, communication with a person with Parkinson's disease. And believe me, that works both ways. Not only for the caregiver, but as a person with Parkinson's, it's important that you keep that good relationship going. So getting prepared. Let's start with education, and you're all here today. That's a great step. I'm sure a lot of you are reading a lot of the information. You can go to the internet. There's a great amount of information on the internet. You can go to your Parkinson's organizations. You can go to the library. You go to the library, you can check out books, but you can also use computers there and get online there if you don't have one at home. When you go to the doctor's office, ask questions. There's no question that's unimportant or stupid. Keep asking until you get the answers you need. And then I want you to evaluate your current situation. Whether you've been doing this for a long time or you're new at it, let's take a look at what's going on. Let's figure out what the needs are for the person with Parkinson's. What's your home environment like? Is it helpful? Are there things in the way? Are there stairs you have to worry about? What's a good way to think about that environment and some important changes that might need to happen? Then as a caregiver, I want you to look at your own health, your own issues, your other commitments. If you're a mother of 5, my gosh, you're juggling that, you're juggling your job, and you're juggling caregiving. It's a lot to deal with, but there's help and you can do it. You have to look at what you can and you can't do. And it's okay to say, no, I can't do this. As an example, one of my caregivers, her husband has fairly advanced Parkinson's, and she recently had knee surgery. She brought her husband into the clinic for a regular appointment, and she told me, I can't do any lifting. I had surgery on my knee. I can't do any lifting. So she made sure that there were people to help her with her husband getting in and out of the car, getting to and from the appointment, and out of the wheelchair. Now, those are clear limits that were set on her by her doctor. Some of the other limits, we have to learn what are appropriate for ourselves, and it's okay to say no to some things. Then I want you to figure out what outside support services you're going to need. And I want you to look at your financial issues. I mentioned how that can be a constraint, but also you need to look at it. You need to look at your health insurance. Is this Parkinson's? Is most of the stuff covered under your health insurance? Is there a high deductible? Do you have to worry about that? Again, your employment, is this something you can keep whenever possible? I recommend you do it. How are you going to pay the bills? And then last thing I want to mention is power of attorney. And it's something to think about. Don't wait. My mother, as a caregiver to my mother with Alzheimer's, I cut it right at the line, because when you have power of attorney, the person who is affected with the illness has to give you their power of attorney. They have to be of sound mind. They have to voluntarily give this to you. So don't wait until things have changed and they can't really give it to you. And for those of you with Parkinson's, you want this person to be your advocate. Give him that power. Don't wait. Then I want you to have a family meeting. If you haven't already done this, it's not too late to start. It's a great idea. Have a family meeting, because Parkinson's affects the whole family. All of you need to be in on this. It brings the family together, it opens those communication lines, and it helps everyone understand what's going on now and what may happen in the future. Have it as early as possible after the diagnosis is made, but it's never too late. And keep them going. It's a great way to keep the family involved. And then there's been a question as to whether or not you should include the person with Parkinson's. Well, of course. But there are some times when it might be better to have the family meeting first and bring this person in a little bit later. But always, it's a joint effort with everybody, and everybody has a say. Take care of yourself. I can't say this enough. For the caregiver, you must take care of yourself, because your own good health is the best present you can give to your loved one. That came from Susanna Mintz. She's the president and co-founder of the National Family Caregiver Alliance. She's a caregiver to her husband, who has multiple sclerosis. She started this organization with a friend of hers. They were both caregivers, and they got together this one weekend and decided, this is too hard. And they founded this organization. It's a great organization, and it's a wonderful resource to you that you can use. Some of the things she's written, a few excellent books that I recommend. You can ask me about them later, but they're really good. And she writes it from her heart because she's a caregiver. So as a caregiver, you have to maintain your mental and your physical health. You have to keep those doctor's appointments. You have to keep those dental appointments. And I'm talking about yours. I'm not talking about theirs. It's almost like, oh my God, another appointment. I don't have time. How do I do this? I'm trying to get Fred to the doctor. I can't do that. But yes, you can and you must. You got to keep up your own health. Keep your job whenever possible. I mentioned that before. Remember, our jobs are so important to us. So much self-esteem comes from our jobs. If you can go part-time, try it, but try to keep your job. And I highly recommend joining a support group. We have a support group at the San Francisco VA, which is where I work. and it's open to everyone. In your packet, in your folder, I have a flyer, and it talks about the support group. We have it once a month. It's the third Tuesday of every month. We just changed the time. We're trying out the 4 to 5:30 p.m. slot. And we have a great turnout, and I think everybody gets something out of it. We meet together, we hear different educational things, then we separate into groups. We have the caregivers in one group and the Parkinson's patients in the other, so everybody can talk about what they need to talk about, and then we come back together. So please join a support group if you haven't already. Taking care of yourself involves getting your sleep. And Dr. Glass told us how hard it is for the Parkinson patient to get sleep. Well, guess what? If you're in that bed with that patient kicking and screaming, time to move. And maybe it's time to move out of the room to your own room so you can get your sleep. It's okay. And if you're worried about the person with Parkinson's, there are monitors that you can get for the other room. But you got to get your sleep so you can have another day. Take breaks. I say mini breaks and getaways. If you can get away for the weekend, terrific. Usually that's not the case anymore, without mega plans. But sometimes just a mini break can make a difference. I have this family in Denver. They live outside of Denver, and the wife called me one day. Her husband has really bad Parkinson's, and he had young onset, and she was just beside herself, and she called me up. She said, Elaine, I don't know what to do. I've had it, it's killing me. I told her to take a deep breath, and I told her to walk outside after she got off the phone with me. Walk outside, take a breath of fresh air, and just get your mind on something other than the caregiving. That's what I call a mini break. Another person told me they have this stash of chocolate they keep in another room. That's their break. And I don't care, whatever works, you do it. Get your mind off of the caregiving for whatever amount of time you need, and then go back. So you need to keep your social activities. Even if the Parkinson patient can't join you, try to keep those connections. It's really important. Your spiritual activities, whether you belong to a church, a synagogue, whether you do yoga, whatever it is, keep those connections. Keep those things going. You deserve it and you need it. And then keep, or in some cases, develop your sense of humor. And this was challenging for me with my mother and her Alzheimer's, because I watched this beautiful woman get worse and worse, lose her mind, lose her function. But at one point I start writing down some of the things that she said so I could always remember them. And they didn't always make sense, but some of them were really precious and really made me laugh. She had this one. I was telling her that my brother lives in Maryland, my sister's in Arizona, and we were all coming to see her. I said, Mom, we're all coming to see you next week on Tuesday. That's just a few days away. We're all going to be here. She looks at me, and I think she understood, and she said, that's a bonanza. You know, it was kind of there, but I loved it, and that was one of the ones I wrote in my book. So keep your sense of humor, and get help. Don't do this alone. See this young gal in here? Look at that. She can carry those groceries. There's got to be somebody to help you, you know? If you get help, it lessens your feeling of isolation, that you're the only one doing this job. You don't have to be. It encourages the independence of the person with Parkinson's. You know, if you're not there to do everything, sometimes they might do it without you. May not be as great a job, but you know, it's okay. It gives you more confidence in your own ability to caregive and increases your creativity. Sometimes when we see somebody else doing what we usually do, we think, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of doing it that way? It helps you be more peaceful and creative when you're not doing it 100% of the time. So, talking about getting help, I want you to know that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. You're not saying you're a bad caregiver. You're saying it's beyond what you can do sometimes. So the thing to do when you're asking for help is you want to break the caregiving job down into individual tasks. I want you to make a list of caregiver tasks and put that in column A, and then I want you to put in column B what it requires and how you can get that help. So maybe on the left-hand side is, grocery shopping, okay? So on the right-hand side, all right, who can help? Maybe your grandson who just got his driver's license, who loves to drive, can get the groceries. Or maybe he can pick up the medications that you can't get to Walgreens for. Any kind of help. And then there's people that live out of town. I told you my brother lives in Maryland, my sister lives in Arizona. My brother would take care of my mother's taxes. I loved that. I hated dealing with all that stuff. My sister, she could actually make appointments. She can use a telephone, and she would make appointments for my mother through Kaiser. She'd check with me, but I didn't have to wait online until all those were made. Let people help you. So then you made this list of what's required and how people can help. And you look at that list and you decide, okay, this is what has to be done. Fred has to get his bath. He has to get dressed. Maybe those are things that you'll keep doing. And then as far as some of the things that you'll let go of, maybe that's meal preparation. Maybe your daughter, maybe your son, maybe anyone loves to cook and is going to come over and prepare a meal for you and wash the dishes afterwards. Maybe there's a neighbor down the street that can mow the lawn for you or take care of things. Maybe repair the gutters in the house. Whatever it is, let people help you. And I recommend when you ask for help, start with something small. Run an errand. Go get the medications at Walgreens for you that you're almost out of. And then that person that helped you feels good that they were able to do something, and you can get some confidence in their ability. So I've listed some resources here, but they're in your packet, so we don't have to go through them. Looks like this. This is the caregiver resources, and it's not a full list, but it's just an idea of where you can get help, because there's some absolutely free things and very low cost things. So I'll move on from that. There's one here, this is state and national, and I want to mention, right here in San Francisco is the Family Caregiver Alliance. They're located right here. They're here to help people take care of others, family caregivers. So take advantage of them. And then these are other organizations. The Parkinson's organizations are very helpful. So again, they're all in the folder. So your relationship and your communication with the person with Parkinson's. This can be the most rewarding, and it can be the most difficult part of the job because roles change. With my mother, I started out as her daughter. I ended up being her mother because I took care of all her needs as you do as a caregiver. It's tough with this role change. But research shows that despite the high levels of caregiver strain, caregivers with good quality relationships have reduced depression and better physical health. So keeping the lines of communication open, working on the relationships, and it takes two, is really, really important and has great rewards. So now this is for you with Parkinson's and about your caregiver. I want you to appreciate your caregiver. I know you probably really do, but you got to tell them, and you got to tell them often. You got to thank them. It goes a long way. And as a person with Parkinson's, you need to be honest in your communication. Don't minimize things. If things are tough, you got to tell them. And don't avoid communicating to spare people. Your caregiver needs to know what's going on. I also heard somebody mention to me, we brought this up recently at our support group, Do you worry about, as a person with Parkinson's, do you worry about the burden on the person caring for you? And they all had something to say. One person said that, you know, I worry that if I ask for the help now, it won't be there later when I really need it. That's not the case. We asked the caregivers who were in a separate room the same question about this. When it came to communication, they all said they want to know what's going on. So don't try to spare people. You know, I mean, granted, you don't want to complain every hour of every day about your darn Parkinson symptoms, but, you know, let everybody know what's going on. And as a person with Parkinson's, you want to be cooperative, you want to be a team player. Work with your caregiver. Go along with what they're trying to do for you. But don't expect the things that they do to be exactly the way you do them. I mean, I can give you a simple example of that. I asked my husband to go to the grocery store because I couldn't go. And, you know, he did a great job. He got everything on the list I asked him to get, but it wasn't quite exactly, you know, and I wanted to yell at him and say, how could you do that? I asked you to get this brand and not, you know. You know what? It doesn't matter. He did a great job. He saved me at least an hour. So don't expect everything to be exactly the way you want it, but it's good enough. So basically, in summary, as caregivers, get prepared, educate yourself, assess your situation, have a family meeting. Take care of yourself and get help. For the person with Parkinson's, I tell you, appreciate your caregiver. Be open and honest, and be cooperative. You're a great team. To both of you, work positively on your relationship, your communication with each other. And I think you'll have an excellent, successful caregiving team. Thank you.